everyone, Trish Charleston here, also known as the Cowboy's wife. I'm no expert on anything and I don't claim to be, but I have been alive for 56 years, so I have some funny stories. Come saddle up with me and take a ride, and maybe I can make you laugh or smile or cry or give you something to just think about that day. Let's do this. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is the Cowboy's wife, Trish Charleston. Today I'm with my daughter, my oldest daughter, Quincy. Quincy's 29 years old now, and she was the first one to ever hear my heartbeat from the inside. So she is also been known as the golden child in our house. Her father and her sister both think that she's my favorite, and
I mean, someone has to do it.
She's never denied it, always embraced it. So seriously, did you feel like I favored you over Emma?
No, I never thought that. I never did.
So why did they? I mean, I just don't get it.
I don't know. I'm not sure why that was ever.
Oh no, it was real.
We'll have to ask Emma. We'll have to.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do a double call one day and put her on here too, and you guys can duke it out. But yeah. So
and I'm going to apologize now because you're going to be able to hear this little guy, Charleston and Sybil, in the background. So
you gotta go be quiet. No, that's all right. That's all right. They're my favorite people on the planet now, so that's all right. So growing up, tell us what it was like growing up on the farm. What your favorite part about growing up on a farm was, or your least favorite part.
I was gonna say now or when I was younger, because
so when you were younger, because now you have a totally different view of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about when you were younger, how hard it was. Hard, right?
Yeah, when I was younger. Well, and I mean, we're obviously a rodeo family and an ag family through and through. And so I loved the fact that we were outside all the time. Granted, I never knew any different. So I loved the horses, and me and Emma would ride for just hours on end. And so that part I always enjoyed, just being horseback and being like, we would float them through the river. I mean, we did some very maybe sketchy things looking back now. But
so sketchy. Yeah. I would look out and you guys would be standing on your horses, trick riding.
Yeah. And
I really needed to come out more because I didn't know most of this was going on.
But no, I always loved that part, like the horses and all of that stuff. But the part that it wasn't that I didn't love it. I didn't have the passion I think that the rest of the family had for I don't even know which part, because now I do, but I just always knew that I was going to go to town. I was going to move to town and I was never coming back. And so I just knew when I left at 18 that was what I was going to do. And I was going to go play softball. And, Dad and I never didn't get along, but it was a harder relationship when I was younger, when I was playing sports and trying to rodeo and play softball. And so I feel like trying to navigate that for a while, and it got better as I got older. And then once I really decided softball was what I was going to do, then he built the cage, and then he could watch me pitch from his horse. And so, I mean, we figured out how to build our relationship together through that. And it just took a little bit of time navigating that, I feel like. But, it's funny because now, obviously, what I appreciate so much is I always thought that like I said, wanted to live in town until we had kids. And when we had kids, it made so much sense to me, or even really at the end of my time in Texas, that I wanted to come home and at least try to live here and see, live in Southwest Missouri, see what life was like. But as soon as we had Charleston, our first son, and now we have two more, that I wanted them to be around this lifestyle, because it did teach me to work hard. It taught me to work hard. It taught me to feed something that can't feed itself, and take care of something that can't take care of itself without you, but also just the value. There's so many things, and I can talk forever on this because this is one of my biggest passions now is food and how we fuel our bodies and where food comes from. And that's probably one of my biggest things that as a mom, aside from teaching my kids whose they are, that they are Jesus is, and that they are, sons and daughters of God, but that they are where their food comes from and why the food, like how the food gets to the plate. It doesn't just show up at Walmart, right? Like that there are things that go into that. And so just teaching them to appreciate the farmers and ranchers that take care of our animals and grow our crops. And also we do a large garden and a large, we're venturing into the greenhouse space. My corn is this tall, so I'm pretty excited about it. It's a couple inches.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm pretty excited. We'll see, but we've got it hooked up. There's electric and grow lights in there. And so the kids enjoy that too. And like, there's never a time I feel more connected to God than when my hands are in the dirt. I think that's, I've said that, you and I have talked about that. I don't know where I learned that from a young age, that I always wanted to be barefoot in the grass. And that for me is, I'm never more connected to God than when my hands or feet are touching the earth.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I mean, I've always had a garden when you were growing up. You always had a garden. I never had a gigantic garden, but before you even had teeth, you ate a cucumber sitting in the wagon in the garden. You gummed that thing all the way down, dirt and all. But yeah, the choices of food that you're putting in your body, you certainly didn't get that from me, because I literally just had raviolis for lunch. And all I could think about was red dye, because there's no way that sauce is really that bright red. I'm like, there's a reason that my body feels the way that it does. But let's go back a little bit into your softball career. So you rodeoed forever, and we tried to do both, and we tried to drive around from softball to rodeo, and softball to rodeo, and then finally you just said you could throw that softball in your room and didn't have to feed it, and you were just going to do that. But then it took on a whole different, it became a whole different beast, because you started playing in high school and you started figuring out you're pretty good at it, and then you made the goal that you wanted to play Division I softball. So tell us a little bit about how that all went down.
Yeah, no, I remember getting on my first travel team, because you guys put us in all the sports, right? Like we got to play all the different things, but I figured out pretty quickly that I really enjoyed softball, and I just wanted to try it further. And I got asked to be on a travel team, which just a little travel team, but I got to at least get my feet wet into the next level. And I just started to fall in love with it more and more. And, but I remember about high school, and I had to make the decision of which one I was going to do, because realistically, it just didn't make sense to try and do softball and rodeo. And I'm not sure that my heart was really in the rodeo either. And
even when you were winning everything, you didn't feel like.
Well, no, I think like high school, like when I really decided to step away from it. Yeah, more. But no, I loved it when I was little. But that I did love it when I was little. And it's the same thing of how I feel when I go back to a softball field now, of I don't miss rodeo or softball until I step into an arena or I step onto a field. Like it was never my identity, neither of them. And, I really attribute a lot of that to you, of like, I know whose I am, and like, I have found my foundation in Jesus. And like, I just know I'm more than the sport of whether it's rodeo or softball. And, I didn't always know that, by no means that I always know that, but I feel like that's why I have a lot of peace of, yes, in the spring, I'll always miss softball. And when I step in, I go watch the Cousins rodeo or whoever rodeo or Emma rodeo, I still have a passion for it and like understanding it, but it's not like, oh, I want to go get a horse. Yeah.
Ooh, sign me up. Enter me up.
No. Yeah.
No. So this last weekend we ended up going to, well, let's back up a little bit. So this year, earlier in the year, you were on a panel at the National Cattlemen's Association. NCBA, National Cattlemen's Beef Association, and it was on Ranch Her and Farm Her, and they were asking you all kinds of personal questions, and they got real deep, and I was in the crowd, and I didn't realize any of this was coming at me, and I mean, it wasn't about me, but then it became about me because you gave me a lot of credit for some things which I was not prepared for, and so I was like a puddle on the floor in there. But I also didn't realize that you were still holding on to some stuff that you learned by. So talk about how when you started your career at NEO and you were the number one.
Yeah,
you weren't not first, but you earned the number one spot, and then you became the ace pitcher. You ended up taking your team all the way to the national finals. You ended up getting 9 Division I scholarships in one weekend. I mean, it was an unbelievable experience, to say the least. Then you fly out to Texas State by yourself because I think Emma had a high school rodeo final. Huh?
No,
it was the weather.
And I couldn't get out, and I was on a different flight.
Oh, okay. I knew something was wonky because you went by yourself, and I was fully freaked out.
But because they paid for my flight out of Kansas City, and you guys were going to go out of Springfield, and Springfield wouldn't get you out for whatever reason, and yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. So you went by yourself, and the next phone call I get is I signed to play with Texas State because Kat Osterman was there, and Kat wooed you hard, and
I mean, I feel like when I landed in Austin, there was red dirt music playing, and I fell in love with the campus of Texas State as soon as I walked on it. And if you've ever been to Texas State, you understand it because the river runs through campus, and it feels like a big time college. And that was, always my dream was to be Division I. And so I feel like even going back a step further, because I don't think I really answered your other question fully of, like, my passion started developing, but then I really decided, like, I think I can do this. I want to play Division I. And I was hurt through my whole high school career. Of something, was injured all the time. But I think we're
still dealing with right now, which we didn't even realize. Yeah,
we're still living that.
Ended up
when I was 15.
2 stress fractures in her back. So basically your back were broken in 2 places.
Yes. And so I spent about 6 months of my 15-year-old year in a back brace. And I have to thank Roger Doman a lot for getting me back strong, because I really don't believe without him and the physical therapy and everything that I did with him, like I don't know that I would have ever been nearly as strong as I was when I came out. But after I got through the high school, and I'll never forget my high school basketball coach, and I love him to this day, but one of the things he told me, and I'll never forget, and I truly kind of attribute the fact of how hard I drove myself to just proving him wrong, truthfully. He told me I went in to quit high school basketball before the season had started. I was going to just not play my junior year. I said I was going to focus on softball, and he said, Quincy, here's the deal. There's a very small number of athletes that'll ever play Division I, and truthfully, I just don't feel like you're a Division I softball player. And
which coach was this?
Oh, Coach Moore.
Oh, okay.
So when he told me that, I just remember.
I just need to know so I can send him a hateful letter. No, I'm just kidding.
It worked out. He was one of my favorite high school coaches.
My golden child. You did what? Okay, sorry. That was the mama bear coming out for a minute. Yeah. Sorry.
But when he told me that, I was so hurt. But he talked me into playing, and I don't regret that at all. I loved my high school basketball career, and I got to spend it with Chloe, who's one of my best friends still this day. And we got to do a lot of fun things in basketball. But in that, I'll never forget that conversation. And that conversation drove a lot of the decisions I made, right, wrong, and different. I was just going to prove him wrong.
That I was going to make you did, by God.
And so, yeah.
You also got to kind of mop the floor with your little sister a little bit. She was a point guard. She'd come at you. Yeah. You were post, and it was like hitting a brick wall. She said that she
she would try to run through me, and I'm a much bigger version of her. We look a lot alike, but I'm just a much larger version.
You would just throw her across the room across the basketball floor like a little rag doll.
But I getting through all that, I got, the opportunity, and I had an amazing pitching coach when I was growing up. That was Joe Packwood, and Joe was in a wheelchair and a paraplegic, and he had a little bit of function in his hands, enough that he could show me how to, which grip to use on a ball, but that was about it. And having Joe in my life, and just so many people, God put in my life to direct me where I was going. But thankfully, we went to the recruiting visit at NEO, who wasn't really recruiting me at that time. I had a bad shoulder. Pitt State had backed out. I mean, there wasn't any really true options. I had more basketball offers than softball, which is just infuriating. But I had those. And so I walked on the NEO campus, and I remember going to meet Coach Iverson, and fell in love with it just immediately when we walked on that campus as well, because I felt at home. And for anybody that hasn't went through that experience yet, when you find your campus of where you're supposed to be, or like when you walk on the campus, and I felt that at both NEO and Texas State. And but I had a really awesome career at NEO. It was a lot of fun. I got to play with some really amazing people, and we did get to the national championship. And in that, like you said, got recruited and got to Texas State. And so, I had met my goal of being the Division I. And I think that's what's so funny, is we set these goals in our life, but then we meet them and you're like, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like that's kind of what happened to me when I got to Texas State, is what now? And I specifically went to Texas State because they had an ace, and I wanted to not be alone as a pitcher anymore. And, I thought I understood what it meant to be a pitching staff, and truthfully I didn't. I was like, no, I just want somebody to help me when I need help, but like, I still want to do it, I think is what I thought in my head.
Yeah.
But God had different plans for me, and I think it was extremely important and extremely crucial that I went through all of it, because I learned how to live life not being number one. I think God was showing me that I needed to have somebody in front of me to remember that He is in front of me always.
So when you were at the NCBA conference, and they asked you what it was what was it you regretted or you could change, or I can't remember the exact question.
Mm-hmm.
How did you answer that?
Oh gosh, you're gonna have to help remind me too, because
you were talking about that not being the number one, and that you said that you felt like you kind of gave up on yourself while you were there.
Yeah, I did. I feel like that was the only time in my life that I really lost who I was and who I am. I realized I wasn't the ace, which was, duh, that's what I was going there for, was to have an ace. But I think the realization when I got there was, holy cow, I'm really not going to be the ace. And what does life look like now? And I had to really reprove myself again. And I felt a little bit defeated in that. And instead of really buckling down and engaging how I always had, I kind of just walked away. And not that I still engaged and still worked hard at practice and things like that, but I'd always been somebody who did the extra things, right? Like I worked out extra at home, I worked out extra wherever I was, and threw extra pitches, whatever it was. And I just didn't do that when I got to Texas State. And it's, looking back now, that is the one thing that I do regret, because I do think I could have been a bigger impact and helped our team better. But I walked away from it, and I decided to let other priorities take control of my life at that time. And, I won't say I regret it, because it led me to my husband. And I think God, knew what He was doing there. And I found Colt through that. But there was sure is a lot of tears and heartbreak in the middle of it, that it was hard. And, one of the things that it really hit me this weekend of when we did go back to Texas State was how much I have changed.
So this last weekend was the alumni softball game and alumni weekend. And so when I went with Quincy, and we I went with you, and we get there. She's got a bulging disc in her back. She's like, no way she's going to play. So, of course, the mom and me, I'm like, the competitiveness in me, I'm like, the hell you say? You're going to play. You have to play. I'm not coming all this way to watch you sit on the bench. And the second you got on the field, you're like, I mean, after you got the mud daubers out of your glove, because you obviously hadn't practiced in a hot minute, but you felt it too. The second you got on the field, you're like, I'm not sitting on the bench. And you're in it. So that was hilarious. So go on with that.
No, it was just funny to go back and
it's been 7 years.
Yeah, it had been 7 years since I had been back. I'd never played in an alumni game or weekend, and so that was fun. I had helped work it as a player, but never had been as an alumni, and so it was good to come back and just see everyone, see all of my friends, but also it was just funny how much I had changed in that too, of like things that I used to be so nervous about, or things that used to really like give me anxiety in a moment of, I had gotten myself so fearful when I'd stepped into the box by the time I had ended my career that I had convinced myself I couldn't hit. And obviously it was slow pitch and fun, but it was just funny because even, a couple of years ago, I would get all freaked out at a slow pitch game because I didn't want to look silly or whatever. And I think maybe because my back hurt so bad, I just didn't care. So I just played, but I just didn't have to be this perfect person. And it didn't have to be all like, I didn't have to not make a mistake or, and as silly as that is, I knew we were just going alumni weekend, but it was just pretty freeing for me to realize like, I'm not controlled by that like level of fear or anxiety anymore of like performing in that. And so, that was pretty fun. And just also, I've just, I'm a mom now and I have a job and like, I have a
so we went, it was funny though. We were both discussing this too, is how different some people have grown up and some people haven't. Some people are still stuck there. And that's, their lives haven't changed. They haven't met the man of their dreams yet. And so they're still doing what they do. A lot of them are coaching now, which is super cool.
Yeah.
But if we walked into, the first place we walked into was just simply a sports bar that we went into for lunch. I mean, it wasn't even late at night. And
it was noon.
So loud that we could not even hear ourselves think. And I just thought it was hilarious because it wasn't just me, the one complaining this time. Quincy's like, ask them to turn it down.
I know,
and
like,
you think you could turn that down? And then that night we went out. You wanted to go to your favorite place that y'all used to go drink margaritas. And as soon as we walk in, the first thing you said is, I just don't remember it being so loud. And I'm just like, and there it is. It's called I Have Babies Now, and this is ridiculous.
Yep. Nope. I never felt older. Yep. Sibby has joined the chat. I have never felt older than standing in line to go to the bathroom, and I was looking at myself in the mirror, and I was like, "Wow, I look like a mom."
Well, you are. You've got 3. I've only got 2, so you're more mom than me. Oh my goodness. So you're talking about how you guys are growing your garden and everything, and that's super cool. And you said to me that you have a passion for feeding people, not only your family, but you want to try to feed other people too, just even in the community. You already have like so many chickens that Charleston has to walk in there and kick them and say, "Get!" But you already you take eggs to work all the time, and you take extra vegetables and things that you grow in your garden. You guys have a huge garden. You've got cows. So you said you were never coming back, never going to do this. When did you? So you said you started missing it. Did you miss it? Did you miss it while you were in San Marcos, or the second you got back, you realized this is home?
No, I think I started missing it when I got my house in Texas. I think was when I realized, because I'd always wanted to live in a neighborhood, and there was a lot of really cool things about living in a neighborhood, of just that ease of like, I was just close to anything, right? I could go to do anything in 10 minutes, but I could see 26 people from my backyard, 26 houses.
Yeah.
And
not just 26 houses and see what they're doing.
Yeah. Like you could like see a lot because I lived kind of up on a hill. And so, yeah, you could really see a lot. And I thought that was fun for a season. But then I just started missing some of the things about home. And I still I think I missed you guys, obviously, my family and the people, but just the community too of, one of the things I loved about my time in San Marcos is I wasn't Kevin and Trish's daughter there. I just got to be Quincy, and I got to figure out who Quincy was in that moment. And that's one thing that, anytime somebody asked me about college, and for me, that was so valuable, going to figure out who I am. And at first I loved it, that I was like, I got to be my own person. Nobody knew who I was. And then I was like, no one knows who I am and no one cares who I am. And then I was like, and not that
it matters who I am, where I came from,
but more about if you need something or if you're in a bind, like there wasn't just 20 people I could call. And I was starting to build that in Texas, but I know if I really needed somebody if something happened and I needed somebody to watch the kids, I could legitimately list 25 people right now that I know would take them in a heartbeat. And help us through whatever. And so like that part of the life, like I just started to miss a little bit. And when Colt and I met and really figured out very quickly that we wanted to spend the rest of our lives together, and we started talking about what the future looked like. And he grew up in Houston and they live outskirts of Houston, but now in Katy, they're in Katy. And so Katy has really become just another piece of Houston at this point. And so they lived on 2 acres, and Colt thought he grew up on land. And when we came home to Missouri to visit, he was like, oh, okay, this is different. So I'm like, yeah, this is not the same. And so it was a big culture shift for him moving. And the things that I had kind of always taken for granted, the 25 people I could call or whatever, he's like, yeah, no, this isn't everywhere. And so that was kind of one of the things that started solidifying that we didn't want to leave. And pretty quickly, our deal was that we'd try it for a year. And then if we didn't like it, we could always move back. And I would say within 6 months, we knew we would spend the rest of our lives here.
Well, I think that night or the weekend of the wedding, even his own family.
Yeah.
Pat, his dad gave a speech after.
So sweet.
Everyone in our community, all of our friends and family showed up to help put this thing together. They cooked for you all the night before at the rehearsal dinner. The whole time, everybody was setting up plates, tents. We got back.
All the things.
400. We prepared for 450 people.
Yeah.
And Father Steve stopped counting at 550. And he said he thought there were probably 600 people there. And somehow we managed to feed them thanks to boomers. But I think that in that moment, Colt's dad said, I've never seen anything like this. And I think we take it for granted because we're used to it all the time, and people just show up for you here, and it's not that way everywhere. And so we are really, really blessed. We have a big family too, but we also have this crazy community that just jumps in and helps you when you need it. And that's irreplaceable.
I think that's the piece for me of like, even growing up, you always took us around to do May Day flowers. And like, we always took the little old ladies around the community. We would take them a little basket of flowers, and that made their whole month, like of just somebody showing up on a day that they didn't have to. And so those are the things. Or if, somebody has a new baby, I had neighbors come out of the woodworks, that some of them that I didn't even know that well at the time, of, can we bring you dinner? What do you guys need? Do you guys need anything? When we had, have had our children, and, after you have the third, everybody's like, they're fine. They know what they're doing.
Now they just think you're insane. So something's wrong with these people. Stop going over to their house. Yeah.
Something's in the water over there. But no, that piece of the community is what we've really learned to love. And I feel like that's part of my passion too, is, you know, our community does such a great job in the summer of sharing their wealth of their crops. And like, you know, there's always extra cucumbers or tomatoes or whatever. But there's not that in the winter, and times are really tight right now. And we know a lot of families are struggling. And for me, I know how much better I feel when I eat fresh foods, that I know I'm not alone in that, right? Like we know we all feel better when we eat fresh foods, but sometimes we can't afford that. And so our goal is to not only grow enough in our greenhouse to provide for our family, but maybe be able to provide for one other family, or maybe a few others, of being able to just help here and there, of some, you know, 4 things of fresh ears of corn go a long way, or, you know, whatever it might be. So we're going to try. It might fail miserably, but we're going to give it a shot this year. So
I think that's so cool, because I've been trying to figure out a non-for-profit, some kind of charity to donate part of my book money to, if I'm able to sell any books on this next book. Well, I hope. But if I've always had a passion for the backpack program. I think that's an amazing program that they have. But again, I don't know what they're putting in those suckers. You know, I don't know what they're sending home with them, but some of those kids don't have any food.
Right. And so, something is a whole lot better than nothing.
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, yes, but not if it's killing them, you know. Right. But you get real torn about it, because they've got I don't know. You can only do what you feel called to do, and what they do with it is on them, not on you. And so that's something that I kind of try to I struggle with, because you can't think about all the what ifs. You just got to hope that, you know, the children that you're trying to help are getting the help. But you said you wanted to plant an orchard, and so I had been dying to plant a bunch of trees. And so what do? I'm like, I had all these plants that I'd been planting, that I'd been growing forever. I had bought these trees. Well, little did I know that they're, you know, trees that grow in Florida. And so I planted all these limes and lemons. I Googled it. They said they could grow here if you didn't have a harsh winter. Well, last year, I think it was like -10 for like 2 weeks. So I feel like that's probably a harsh winter. So that doesn't apply. I even planted an olive tree, and I think they have one at Grace Church. I swear there's an olive tree out there. But anyway, so I ripped all those suckers out of the ground, put them back in pots, put them back in the house, and then I planted this orchard. And you guys come over, and you're just like, that bitch. I mean, so funny, because I totally stole your idea, because you told me that you were going to plant this great orchard.
I loved it. We're going to have so many fruits and veggies.
No, we are. And so, but you're going to do the same. You're going to plant an orchard behind your new house. And
we are.
And I just think it's wonderful. I'm just super proud of you. But so tell me what you do at work. How on earth do you manage 3 babies? I mean, there they are.
I was like, what do you mean? If you're watching on video, you can see them.
Charleston's shopping. He's dragging some stuff. He's right now. Play golf or something. I can't tell what he's doing.
No, there's some stuff in there.
But there is. He's a garbage collector. So what do you do at Specialty Risk Insurance? And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So currently I help handle operations over at Specialty Risk. And so kind of what that means is I touch a lot of different things, but I handle some of the HR functions like hiring, recruiting, things like that. And some of the paperwork that goes along with that. But I also get to spend a lot of time at our team level. And so I get to work with all of our different departments. We're made up of 10 different departments, but a few of them are like farm, commercial ag, employee benefits, livestock, equine, things like that. And so I get to spend a lot of time with our people. And, I've been at Specialty now 6 years this fall, and been in insurance 7.5. And so it's been really fun. It's a fun journey, and insurance is like never one thing that, when we hire people, we're like, listen, we realize nobody grows up and is like, I want to sell insurance, but nobody says that.
You certainly didn't. And your dad didn't either. And then ended up starting this business from the ground up. And
and it's been amazing. I mean, it's been so amazing to be a part of. Yeah.
He never pressured either one of you to sell, and you just called one day and say, hey, I think I want to sell insurance for Dad. Of course, NCAA didn't help with that when they were going to make you go to school another 4 years to be a speech pathologist. But
But I mean, I think it was definitely a God thing, and looking back now too, but and I think that's the thing in insurance too. And I felt like I owed it to Dad when we moved back to at least try. I've done, and like the agency I was at before, I did employee benefits, I helped in the benefit space. And then I did kind of some risk management, some oil field compliance type things. And then when I got over to specialty, I started in kind of the benefits space. But, Dad, when I started, said, I'm not going to tell you what to do. You just are going to figure out where you belong. And I'm like, dude, I'm a person that needs a plan. And like, I need to execute these things. And he's like, well, I'm not going to tell you. You just need to figure out, like, go help somebody that needs help. And I was like, okay. So I tried that, and I really navigated towards the employee benefits side and got to know Tiffany Engel, who is now one of my best friends. And Tiff and I got the opportunity to work together, and I got to work under Tiff and really learn from her. And we spent a lot of time together. And I'd always been in the conversations with the agency, but I'd never just been in a true like leadership type role. And about a year ago was when we had some transition in our operations role, and I slid over into that role. And it's been I have really started to love the position that I'm in, because I get to be around the insurance, and I love insurance. That sounds so silly to say, but it's so vast, and people have no idea what all it entails and how deep it can go. And, just how you can protect, like you are protecting someone's livelihood, and we take that seriously. And I think it's just pretty special to be a part of. But the other thing with that is the people for me is I get to like really just dive deep with our people and engage. Wow, Sibby's about over it. Engage with our team, and people are my passion, and people are who I feel called to be with. And so I can just help them, whatever that needs, like whatever that means, whether it's just a personal conversation, whether they need more training, whatever it is. I just try to be available. And I think that's something both you and Dad, but I've watched Dad at specialty do this he's just available whatever's needed. And I think there's something so special about that, and just in life. And, Bob Goff talks about that of just go, like be available for people, meet them where they're at. And that applies to whatever you're doing in life. And so I think that's, some of the things why specialty has been so successful is we're just trying to do the right thing, whether that's for the people inside the office or out. And, no, are we perfect? Absolutely not. Do we make mistakes every day? I promise. But we are constantly trying to be the best version that we can be for our people, our team, and the people we insure. And so it's such a cool place. And I have such a passion for what I do. So it's why I do it. I mean, if I did not have a passion, I have plenty to do, as you can tell. But so it's been, it's fun. So we navigate life between both mom, motherhood, and working. So, and, being a wife too.
Yeah. So if you had to tell these young girls that are starting out now, how you're balancing both? I mean, what kind of advice do you have for these young gals that are starting out?
Gosh, I feel like I'm still very much living that right now, of trying to find, I think one, quit thinking that work-life balance is a real thing. Like it's not. You're never going to find a balance. I mean, that just, in my opinion, doesn't exist. I think you've just got to figure out what matters to you and where you feel called to be. Sorry, we're really sleepy. But I think, that's give yourself grace. Remember that it's not going to be perfect. You're always going to feel like you're failing somebody, but all you can do is what you can do in a day. And, for me is also just being present where I'm at. If I'm at home, I'm home. And if I am at the office, I'm at the office. And like, I just really tried to, those worlds coincide. I had a 2-year-old on my floor in my office for 5 hours the other morning. But in those moments, you just got to roll with it and quit assuming that everyone's expecting you to be perfect in it.
Well, and it's also really nice when you have an employer that allows things like that to happen, and not that he's just your dad. It's not just you that gets to do these things. It's everyone. And one of the things that I love about Dad is one of the things that when people come to work there, and if their kids play sports and they need to go to doctor's appointments or all these things, that's one of the things he said. If you don't want to watch your kid play sports, you probably don't need to work here.
Absolutely. No. I mean, that's the other thing for me is I could not do the things I do if I didn't have the husband I have also. Yes. I mean, I have an amazing husband who is not only a provider for our family, but just and such a great example for our kids, he's just such an awesome dad and such an involved dad. And, I actually don't know how people do it without that, because I barely survived with him. So, so it takes all of it for me, it's definitely, we have a very special thing, and we know that, and we try to just, not abuse what God's given us, and try to just, live out the gifts that he's given us.
Well, and you guys are also very active in your church, and you always put God first. And I think that's the most important thing, is when we put God first, everything else kind of falls into place. And I think that's, exactly how it's intended to be. Doesn't promise it that we're going to have no troubles. I mean, the Bible says we're going to have all kinds of troubles, and that's what forms us. And I think that's, earlier about your softball career. I mean, it made you a better person. It made you a selfless person. Yeah. And so I think that I just know that I'm awfully proud of you.
Thanks. I'm proud of you. Look at her. She's doing the podcast.
Yeah, she really hates it. Sorry, Jordan.
You're doing a great job.
Probably going to never do it again after today.
And Jordan, I'm going to apologize for how many edits you're going to do, because it's a lot.
Well, thank you, Quince. I let you go take care of those beautiful babies. I'm sorry I took so much of your time today.
No, it was fun. I had fun, and there was about 47,000 toys on the.
I know. I'm sorry. Yeah, enjoy the rest of your day picking up toys.
But this one just gave up on me, so that's good. So
yeah. Well, now you can get something else done. Well, I love you. Thank you.
I love you. Thank you. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.